Welcome to Hauntcore Vault. If you are ready for horror tales, you are in the right place. If you are new, please subscribe to the channel. I'd love to know where are you from and what time you are watching. Let's begin. It was November 1st, but it still counts as Halloween because what happened honestly gave me chills. I was sitting at my computer, scrolling through the usual stuff, when my mom sent me a photo. I opened it and froze. At first, I laughed. The photo showed someone at a graduation ceremony, looking exactly like me. Same eyes, same face, same hair, even the same hairstyle. I thought it was some kind of joke, maybe a weird face swap prank. But then I asked my mom where she got it. She said my aunt had been looking at an article online and found the photo. Curiosity got the better of me, so I Googled it myself. And that's when my laughter completely died in my throat. The person in the photo wasn't just a random look-alike. He had my exact first and last name, and my last name is rare, practically unique. I couldn't believe it. I kept digging. It turns out he's a real person, and the photo was from 6 years ago. Every feature matched mine perfectly. The shape of the eyes, the nose, the jawline, even the way the hair fell over the forehead. I sat there staring at the screen, heart racing. It was like looking at myself in a mirror from a completely different life. And the scariest part? My aunt stumbled upon it entirely by chance. There was no reason for me to find this, except that I did. That moment when I realized there really is someone out there who shares my face, my name, my existence, it was the kind of spooky coincidence that makes your skin crawl. I still can't shake it. I keep thinking, what if somewhere he's looking at a photo of me? Halloween has never felt this real. This happened back in the early 80s, though I was just a baby at the time. My parents lived next door to a couple with 2 kids. From what I was told later, the man was cruel, abusive even, and the kids often came knocking on my parents' door in the middle of the night, trying to escape when their parents were fighting. My parents would let them stay over just to make them feel safe. Then came Halloween night. The woman sent the kids to their grandparents for the evening. She waited until her husband was asleep, and then she did something horrific. She stabbed him. 40 times, they said, making absolutely sure he wouldn't survive. My mother ended up being a witness in court on the woman's behalf. She didn't serve much jail time, apparently because of the abuse she suffered. But the story stayed with my parents. Fast forward 25 years. I'm talking to the people who now live in that same house. They ask me if anything weird has ever happened there. I tell them about the murder. They go completely silent. Then they tell me that when they first moved in, they had to have the house blessed because of strange activity. And I can't help but think, maybe the husband never really left. Years ago, I was out trick-or-treating with my brother and my dad. I still remember my brother's costume. My mom had made it herself. He was a Pokemon card. It was awesome, and everyone we passed thought it was the coolest thing ever. It was getting late, and we were heading toward the end of the route, the stretch of sidewalk that connects my neighborhood back to our street. We were tired, our bags were full, and we were already talking about trading candy when we got home. That's when this car pulled up beside us. It was slow, rolling along the curb. The windows were completely tinted, dark enough that you couldn't see anything inside. It stopped just ahead of us, engine idling. Then the window rolled down, only an inch or two. Just enough for whoever was inside to toss something out. A grocery bag, one of those with the big yellow smile printed on the side. The bag hit the sidewalk with a dull thud. It was filled with candy. We all just stood there for a second, confused. My dad walked up first, grabbed the bag before any of the other kids nearby could. He didn't say anything, just looked down the road as the car suddenly tore off, speeding through the neighborhood way faster than it should have. When we got home, we dumped the bag out to check what was inside. It was all name-brand candy, but something was off. Every single wrapper had been tampered with. Torn corners, resealed edges, strange little slits, like they'd been opened and pressed closed again. Every one. We threw it all away, of course. But even now, every Halloween, when I see a car rolling slowly down a neighborhood street, I still think about that bag and how someone, somewhere, thought that would be a treat. Back in 1987, I was 7 years old. My big brother, he was 13 at the time, took me trick-or-treating with him and his girlfriend. Later that night, we met up with his friends, twin brothers who, let's just say, weren't exactly angels. They had a Halloween tradition. Every year, they'd go to their junior high principal's house, kick in the faces of her perfectly carved pumpkins, and even slash her tires. They thought they were untouchable. They'd wear masks, laugh about it, and brag that it was the perfect prank. But that year, the principal had something else planned. Apparently, she'd had enough. She went out and bought 2 brass pumpkins, painted them to look just like the real thing. They were heavy, shiny, and looked flawless. So that Halloween night, when one of the twins went running up her walkway and swung his foot at that pumpkin, crunch! He let out a blood-curdling scream. Several of his toes and a few bones were shattered instantly. I remember standing on the sidewalk, watching her curtains move just slightly. But she never came out, not once. She didn't have to. The following Monday, when the twins showed up at school, one of them was hobbling on crutches, his leg wrapped in a massive cast. And there she was, standing outside her office door. She smiled sweetly and said, "Oh, sweetie, what happened to you?" From that day forward, she gave him that same bright, cheerful smile every single morning until summer vacation. The best part? He couldn't tell anyone what really happened, not even his parents, without admitting what he'd been doing. And the cherry on top? Every year since, that principal has proudly displayed those same 2 pumpkins on her porch, painted bright orange, each one with a goofy hand-painted grin. She calls them her laughy faces. And honestly, I think she earned the last laugh. Even at 21, I never really grew out of the Halloween spirit. I still dressed up every year, still went to pumpkin patches with friends, and I loved staying up late to watch horror movie marathons all through October. But that Halloween was a little different. Because of my job in pharmaceuticals, I had recently moved to a small town in Pennsylvania, over 2 hours from my family and friends. Most holidays and birthdays I spent alone. Still, I was determined to make the best of it. That night, I'd promised myself I'd enjoy the holiday. Just me, some candy, and a few good scary movies. As I walked up the path to my front door, I could hear kids laughing and shouting up and down the street. The air smelled like autumn, sweet, cold, and a little smoky. I smiled. I didn't want to miss out on handing out candy, so I hurried to unlock the door. That's when I noticed the envelope. It was tucked under my welcome mat, plain white, with no return address, just 2 words written neatly on the front. For Allison. Curious, I picked it up, tore it open, and started to read. Dear Allison, how are you? I hope you're enjoying your new home. I'll keep this brief because there isn't much time. Tonight, Halloween night, be sure by 10 p.m. to lock all your doors and windows, and whatever you do not answer your door after 10 p.m. I don't care what you hear or what you think you hear. Do not open your door. Things beyond our comprehension will occur, and you must not open it at any cost. Please heed my warning. I only wish for your well-being. Be safe, stay strong, and do not open your door after 10 p.m. With love, your Aunt Cinthia. I read it twice, maybe 3 times. And then I laughed, because I didn't have an Aunt Cinthia. It had to be some weird prank. I glanced up and down the street, half expecting someone hiding behind a bush with a phone, recording my reaction. But no one was there. Just kids running from door to door, laughing, shouting, "Trick or treat!" So, I threw the letter aside and went to prepare the candy bowl. I was new to the neighborhood, and I wasn't going to be the boring house that didn't hand out treats. For the next few hours, everything was perfect. By 9:15, my candy bowl was nearly empty. I'd been bouncing back and forth between answering the door and watching the horror marathon on TV, sipping a glass of wine and enjoying myself. By 9:45, I decided to call it a night. It had been almost an hour since the last trick-or-treater, and the kids in this neighborhood were all probably in bed. Plus, John Carpenter's Halloween was about to start, and there was no way I was missing that. I stood up, went to the front door, and reached for the porch light switch. That's when I noticed the time on the clock. 10 o'clock. Exactly. The memory of that letter flickered through my mind. The warning about locking the doors, about not opening them after 10. I chuckled to myself. "Nice try, Aunt Cinthia," I muttered. And then, knock, knock, knock. I froze. A small voice came from the other side of the door. "Trick or treat?" For a moment, I almost opened it. Reflex, I guess. But something about the voice stopped me. It was wrong. Off, somehow, like a child's voice, played on an old cassette tape, just slightly warped. "Sorry, I'm out of candy." I waited for footsteps, laughter, something. Instead, I heard the doorknob turn. My stomach dropped. I rushed to the door and locked it, sliding the deadbolt across. I said, "I'm out of candy. Try another house." Silence. Then, slowly, "Allison, open the door." The wine buzz I'd been enjoying all night vanished instantly. I backed away, grabbed my phone, and shouted, "If you don't leave, I'm calling the police." Another pause. Then, in the same distorted voice, "Allison, we both know they can't help you." The door shook violently, the wood splintered around the hinges. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought I'd pass out. I managed to dial 911 and stammer out what was happening, someone trying to break in. And then, the pounding stopped. Everything went dead quiet. The operator stayed on the line as I crept toward the kitchen, grabbing a steak knife from the counter. I cracked the door open just a little to see if they were still there, and what I saw instead were flashing red and blue lights. Police cars and ambulances all gathered in front of my neighbor's house. A police officer ran towards me, his uniform splattered with dark red. "Ma'am, please lock all your doors and windows. Stay inside for the night." I nodded, closed the door, and locked it again.
But I didn't sleep. Not that night. The next morning, the news was calling it the Halloween Massacre. My next-door neighbors, the Doyles, were dead. A family of 6, mutilated beyond recognition. No fingerprints, no DNA, no evidence of any kind. Just gone. I sat on my couch in shock until I remembered the letter. I dug through the trash until I found it and dialed my mother, my hands shaking. "Mom," I asked, "do I have an Aunt Cinthia?" There was a long pause. "Honey, why do you ask?" "Mom, please, just answer. Do I have an Aunt Cinthia?" Another pause. Then quietly, "Technically, yes." My throat went dry. "Who is she? Why have I never met her?" My mom sighed. "Sweetheart, Cinthia was my younger sister. She died when she was born. The umbilical cord wrapped around her neck. She never even took a breath." I couldn't move, couldn't speak. Slowly, I turned the letter over and realized there was more writing on the back. In smaller, delicate handwriting, it said, "Sweetie, there has always been good and evil on this earth. It's up to us to protect our loved ones from the evil. We've never met, not in this life, but I am the guardian of your life. That's what family does. Stay blessed, Allison. Stay safe." I folded the letter against my chest, tears running down my face. I didn't know how or why, but my Aunt Cinthia had saved my life that night.
Every Halloween, the children came to the door. 3 of them, always the same: a devil, a witch, and a Doctor Who Cyberman. They would go from house to house, down the same little street where they lived and played for years. And every Halloween, it was the same thing. Other groups of kids would come away with bags full of sweets, chocolates, cookies, all the good stuff that comes with the night. But when these children knocked, it was different. The people who opened their doors didn't seem to see them. They'd peer out into the dark, look left and right, and call out, "Hello? Who's there? Hello?" And then they'd just close the door again. At first, the children thought it was some sort of prank. Maybe everyone on the street was playing a joke on them. But over time, the laughter faded. Because deep down, they remembered something. They remembered a time when people did see them, when they'd run home with buckets full of candy, laughing and comparing their hauls. But those memories felt distant, like dreams they couldn't quite touch. And there was something else they couldn't quite remember. Something about Maggie. She had always been their ringleader. Every adventure, every mischief, every Halloween. But now, she wasn't there. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't remember why. Maggie, on the other hand, dreaded Halloween. She loved seeing the kids in their costumes, the tiny pumpkins and scarecrows, the older kids showing off their makeup skills. It reminded her of when she and her friends, Alistair, Janet, and Owen, used to do the same thing. Until that night. Halloween, 1978. They were walking home, laughing, talking about their candy, when it happened. A drunk driver came around the corner too fast. He said later he didn't see them in the dark, but by then, it didn't matter. Maggie survived. Her brother and her 2 best friends
did not. The driver served 5 years. Maggie served a lifetime. Every Halloween since, she's heard the same knocks on her door. The same familiar pattern. 3 knocks. Every year she told herself it couldn't be real, that it was her imagination, grief playing tricks on her. But she always knew the truth. That Halloween night, she sat in her chair, clutching a basket of treats. When she heard the knocks, she took a deep breath, stood up, and opened the door. There they were. 3 children in costumes, just as she remembered them. A devil, a witch, and a Cyberman. And though decades had passed, they hadn't aged a day. "Trick or treat," they said in unison. Maggie smiled through her tears. "Wow, great costumes, kids. Very creepy." "We made them ourselves," said the little witch proudly. She almost laughed. Yes, I know. I was there when you meant." Her voice broke. "Here," she said quickly, handing them the entire basket. "You can take it all. You'll be my last ones tonight." The devil grinned. "Thanks, missus! That's great!" As they turned to leave, she whispered, "You're welcome. See you next year, Alistair." She closed the door before they could see her cry. Outside, the children stood in silence. "How'd she know your name, Allie?" Janet asked. Alistair shrugged, trying to sound casual. "We live on the same street, dummy. She probably heard it before." "Oh yeah, maybe," Janet said softly. They started walking. "Hey," she added after a moment, "maybe we'll see Maggie on the way back. I wonder where she went." And as their laughter faded down the street, Maggie sat alone inside, listening to the sound of their voices, the same voices that would return year after year until she joined them.
It happened a few years ago, on Halloween night. 2 of my friends, K and B, and I decided to go trick-or-treating together. We were all teenagers, probably a little too old for it, but it was tradition. And that year, we had a plan. Instead of staying in our own neighborhood, we were going to hit the rich area, the one where the houses were huge, decorated to the max, and most importantly, gave out the good candy. So we crossed over the main road and started walking through those wide, quiet streets lined with glowing jack-o'-lanterns. Everything was normal. Kids running around, parents laughing, porch lights glowing orange. Then a truck drove by. It was one of those older pickup trucks, loud and rough, packed with 5 or 6 guys in their 20s, maybe 30s. They shouted something at us, I couldn't make out what, and then sped past. We figured they were just drunk or goofing around, so we ignored it and kept walking. But a few seconds later, the truck slowed down. Then it stopped, about 20 feet ahead of us. We froze. The air went weirdly quiet. One of the men jumped out of the truck bed, laughing like it was the funniest thing in the world. Then he reached back into the truck and pulled something out. It took me a second to realize what I was looking at. A chainsaw. He revved it up, that high-pitched scream of the motor cutting through the night, and then he ran straight at us. For a moment, none of us moved, and then instinct kicked in. We scattered. Kay and I sprinted up a side street toward a friend's house, while B took off in the opposite direction. I didn't even look back to see how close he was. I could hear the chainsaw roaring behind us, getting louder, then quieter, then gone. We ducked behind some bushes in a yard, hearts pounding, trying to catch our breath. After a few minutes, the sound disappeared completely. We waited, listening. Finally, it was quiet again, except for the distant laughter of kids and the hum of the streetlights. But B was nowhere to be found. We called his phone. No answer. Tried again and again. Nothing. For the next half hour, Kay and I wandered the neighborhood, searching every side street, every driveway. When we finally found him, he was sitting on the curb near a park, shaking, phone in his hand, tears in his eyes. He said the guy had chased him all the way down the street before suddenly turning back, like it was all some sick joke. We called our parents to pick us up, and none of us said a word the whole ride home. To this day, I still don't know if those men were just trying to scare kids or if they'd planned something much worse. All I know is that every Halloween since then, whenever I hear the distant buzz of a chainsaw, I still get chills down my spine.